The screams echoed through the empty plains as Catherine Fletcher doubled over in pain, clutching her swollen belly. The baby wasn't due for another month, but here, in the middle of nowhere with nothing but the vast Wyoming sky as witness, her water had broken, and labor pains gripped her with merciless intensity. "Not now," she gasped, her knuckles white as she gripped the side of her wagon. The wheel had splintered 3 miles back, leaving her stranded on the trail to Riverton. Her husband Samuel had died of fever 2 months prior, leaving her alone to make the journey to her sister's homestead. Please, not now. Another contraction tore through her, and Catherine fell to her knees in the dirt. The late afternoon sun beat down, and she knew darkness would fall soon. No one traveled this route regularly. It could be days before anyone found her. In the distance, a cloud of dust rose against the horizon. Catherine's heart leaped with desperate hope as she forced herself to stand, waving frantically despite the pain that threatened to bring her back down. Owen Sutherland had been riding since dawn, eager to reach Riverton before nightfall. The cattle drive had ended 2 days ago, and with his pockets full of honest pay for the first time in months, he was looking forward to a real bed and a hot meal that wasn't cooked over a campfire. He noticed the broken-down wagon first, then the woman's desperate waving. Spurring his horse forward, he approached with caution. The trail could be dangerous, and not every stranded traveler had honest intentions. But as he drew closer, he saw her face contort with pain as she clutched her belly. "Madam," he called out, dismounting quickly, "are you all right?" Catherine looked up at the tall stranger, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. His clothes were trail-worn, dusty from travel, but his eyes were kind and alert. "The baby," she managed between gasps. "It's coming. Too early." "Please," her words dissolved into a moan as another contraction gripped her. Owen's stomach dropped. He knew horses and cattle. He'd helped birth calves in the dead of winter and foals in spring thunderstorms. But a human baby, that was women's territory. "Where's your husband?" he asked, looking around as if the man might appear from behind the wagon. "Dead," Catherine whispered. "Fever, 2 months ago." Owen's heart clenched. This woman was alone in labor miles from town. "I need to get you to Riverton," he said, already calculating the distance and time. "My horse can—" "No," Catherine cried out, clutching his arm with surprising strength. "There's no time. The pains are too close. The baby is coming now." As if to punctuate her words, she let out another scream, her face flushing red with exertion. "Jesus, Mary, and Joseph," Owen muttered, removing his hat and running a hand through his dark hair. "All right, madam. Let's get you into the wagon at least. More private there." With gentle strength, he lifted Catherine, surprised at how light she felt despite her condition. He carried her to the covered wagon and laid her on the bedroll inside. The space was neat but sparse, clearly the belongings of someone who had sold or left behind most possessions. "What's your name, madam?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady as he helped her arrange herself. "Catherine," she gasped. "Catherine Fletcher." "Owen Sutherland," he replied. "I've helped birth animals, but never—" "It's not so different," Catherine said, trying to smile through her pain. "Except I can tell you what I need." Another contraction hit, and she gripped the edges of the bedroll. "They're coming faster," she panted. "You'll need clean cloth, water if there's any left." Owen moved quickly, finding a water barrel that was thankfully still half full and locating a stack of clean linens in a trunk. He had just set these items beside Catherine when she let out a guttural scream that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. "I need to push," she gasped. "The baby's coming now." Owen swallowed hard. "All right, Catherine, tell me what to do." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Owen followed Catherine's instructions between her contractions, helping her position herself, supporting her back, encouraging her to breathe, and wiping her brow with a damp cloth. As the sun began to set, painting the prairie in gold and crimson, Catherine gave a final, mighty push, and Owen caught a tiny, slippery body in his waiting hands. "It's a girl," he said, his voice cracking with emotion as the infant let out a strong, indignant wail. "A little girl, Catherine." He wrapped the baby in clean linen as Catherine had instructed and placed the squalling infant on her mother's chest. Despite the unconventional circumstances of her arrival, the child appeared healthy, with a shock of dark hair and a fierce set to her tiny jaw. "Look at you," Catherine whispered, tears streaming down her face as she touched her daughter's cheek. "So impatient to see the world." Owen sat back on his heels, watching the tender scene with a lump in his throat. In his 30 years, he'd seen beautiful sunrises over mountain ranges, witnessed herds of wild horses running free across the plains, and stood at the edge of canyons so vast they seemed to reach into eternity. But nothing had prepared him for the raw beauty of this moment, a new life coming into the world, against all odds under the vast Wyoming sky. "Thank you," Catherine said, looking up at him with eyes shining with gratitude. "We would have died without you." Owen shook his head. "You did all the work, madam. Call me Catherine, please," she said softly. "After what we've just been through, formalities seem silly." "Catherine," he repeated, liking the way her name felt in his mouth. "What will you name her?" Catherine looked down at her daughter, who had quieted and was now nuzzling against her mother's chest. "Hope," she said after a moment. "Her name is Hope." Owen smiled. "It suits her." As darkness fell completely, Owen built a fire near the wagon and prepared a simple meal from Catherine's supplies and his own saddlebag. The night air grew cool, a blessing after the heat of the day. Stars appeared by the thousands in the clear sky, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote called to its pack. "You should rest," Owen told Catherine as he brought her a tin cup of broth. "I'll keep watch through the night." Catherine accepted the cup gratefully. "What about Riverton? Weren't you headed there?" "It'll still be there tomorrow," Owen said with a shrug. "Some things are more important than a hot bath and a saloon poker game." Catherine studied him in the firelight. His face was weathered from years in the sun, and his hands were calloused from work, but there was a gentleness to him that belied his rugged appearance. She had been fortunate that this man had been the one to find her. "Tell me about yourself, Owen Sutherland," she said. Owen settled himself near the fire, keeping one eye on the darkness beyond their small circle of light. "Not much to tell. I've been a cowboy since I was 16. Worked ranches from Texas to Montana. Been on my own most of my life." "No family?" Catherine asked. "Had parents once," he said with a sad smile. "Lost Pa to a mining accident when I was 12. Ma held on until I was 15, then consumption took her. Been making my own way ever since." "I'm sorry," Catherine said softly. Owen shrugged. "Life out here is hard, you know that. What about you? Where were you headed before Hope decided to make her appearance?" "My sister lives outside Riverton," Catherine explained. "After Samuel died, I sold what I could of our homestead in Nebraska and packed the rest. Sarah, my sister, has a good-sized place with her husband. They offered to take me in until I could decide what comes next. Good to have family," Owen said. "Yes," Catherine agreed, looking down at Hope, who was sleeping peacefully in her arms. "More important than ever now." The night passed quietly. Owen kept the fire burning and checked regularly on Catherine and the baby. By morning, Catherine was pale and tired but alert, and little Hope was nursing eagerly. "We need to get you to Riverton," Owen said as he prepared a breakfast of coffee and hardtack. "You need a doctor to look you both over, and that wheel won't fix itself," Catherine nodded. "But how? I can't ride your horse in this condition, and the wagon won't move without repairs." Owen considered their options. "I could ride to town, bring back help." Catherine's face tightened with worry. "How long would that take?" "Half a day there and back if I push hard," Owen estimated, "but I don't like leaving you alone." "We don't have much choice," Catherine said pragmatically. "Hope and I will be fine for a few hours." Owen still looked troubled. "Let me think on it while we eat." As they shared their meager breakfast, Owen noticed a dust cloud in the distance, similar to the one he had made approaching yesterday. "Someone's coming," he said, standing and shading his eyes. "Looks like a wagon." Catherine strained to see. "Can you tell who it is?" "Not yet," Owen replied, "but anyone traveling this road is likely headed to Riverton." They waited anxiously as the wagon drew closer. Eventually, Owen could make out an older couple at the reins, their wagon loaded with supplies. "Hello there," Owen called out, waving his hat to get their attention. The wagon slowed, and the gray-haired man driving it eyed Owen suspiciously. "Morning," the man called back. "Everything all right here?" "Actually, we could use some help," Owen explained. "This lady's wheel broke yesterday, and she went into labor. Baby came in the night." The couple exchanged surprised looks, and the woman immediately scrambled down from her seat. "Mercy me! A baby born out here!" the woman exclaimed, hurrying toward the wagon. "I'm Martha Wilson, and that's my husband George. We're headed to our son's place near Riverton." "Catherine Fletcher," Catherine introduced herself as Martha climbed into the wagon. "And this is Hope." Martha's face softened as she saw the newborn. "Oh, she's beautiful. But both of you need proper care, not this rough camping." George had approached Owen and was examining the broken wheel. "Spindle's completely gone," he observed. "Won't be fixed out here." "That's what I figured," Owen agreed. "I was about to ride to town for help when you folks appeared." "No need now," George said decisively. "We can take the mother and child with us. You follow with your horse. We'll sort out what to do with the wagon later." "I hate to leave my things," Catherine said, looking around at her possessions. "Most can be transferred to our wagon," Martha assured her. "The heaviest pieces will have to wait, but George and this young man can secure the wagon before we leave." Within an hour, Catherine's most valuable and necessary possessions had been carefully packed into the Wilsons' wagon, and the broken wagon had been secured as best as possible. George fashioned a comfortable nest of blankets for Catherine and Hope in the back of their wagon. "Are you sure you'll be all right?" Owen asked Catherine as he helped her settle into her new transportation. "Thanks to you, we will," Catherine said, reaching out to squeeze his hand. "Will you come to Riverton too?" "Of course," Owen assured her. "I was headed there anyway, remember, and I want to make sure you and Hope get situated safely with your sister." "Sarah's place is about 3 miles outside town," Catherine told him. "Silver Creek Ranch, it's called." "I'll find it," Owen promised. The journey to Riverton took most of the day, traveling slowly to avoid jostling Catherine and the baby. Owen rode alongside the wagon, occasionally scouting ahead or dropping behind to ensure they weren't followed. Though the territory was generally peaceful these days, lone travelers were still vulnerable to opportunistic thieves. They reached Riverton as the sun began to lower in the western sky. The town had grown considerably in recent years, with the arrival of the railroad spurring development. A proper main street boasted a hotel, general store, saloon, and other businesses. At the far end stood a modest church, and to Catherine's relief, a small building with Dr. Michael Harmon painted on a wooden sign. "Let's get you to the doctor first," Martha insisted. "Your sister's ranch can wait until morning if need be." The doctor, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner, examined both Catherine and Hope thoroughly. "You're lucky," he told Catherine. "Despite the early arrival and unorthodox birth conditions, both you and the child appear healthy. However, I want you to rest completely for at least a week. No travel, no exertion." "But my sister can wait or can come to you," Dr. Harmon said firmly. "I mean it, Mrs. Fletcher. You've been through an ordeal, and your body needs time to recover." Owen, who had been waiting anxiously outside the examination room, stood as Catherine emerged with Hope in her arms. "What did he say?" he asked. Catherine explained the doctor's orders with a sigh. "Now I need to find somewhere in town to stay for a week. The hotel, I suppose, though it will strain my funds." "Nonsense," Martha Wilson interjected. You'll stay with us at our son's place. He and his wife have plenty of room, and she just had a baby herself 6 months ago. She'll be glad of the company. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. Why is everyone being so kind to me? Because that's what folks do out here, George said simply. We look after each other. Owen cleared his throat. I should go arrange for someone to retrieve your wagon and belongings. You'll come to dinner tonight? Martha asked him. Our son's place is the Willow Brook Farm just north of town. Anyone can point you there. Owen hesitated, looking at Catherine. Please come, she said softly. I'd like to thank you properly for everything you've done. All right, he agreed with a slight smile. I'll be there after I've seen to a few things. As the Wilsons helped Catherine into their wagon once more, Owen headed toward the livery stable. He needed to board his horse, arrange for Catherine's wagon to be retrieved, and perhaps find a bath and fresh clothes before dinner. The livery owner, a wiry man named Jenkins, listened to Owen's tale with interest. Delivering a baby, eh? That's not in most cowboys' skill set, he chuckled. I know the Fletcher woman's sister, Sarah. Married to Robert Cooper, they run the Silver Creek spread. Good folks. I'll send my boy out to let them know what's happened. Appreciate it, Owen said. And about the broken wagon, I'll send Ben Carter out tomorrow with his team, Jenkins promised. He's the best wheelwright in 3 counties. Where did you say it was? After giving detailed directions, Owen paid for his horse's care and inquired about bathing facilities. Hotel has proper baths, Jenkins told him. 3 doors down, can't miss it. Tell Maud I sent you, and she might not charge double because it's Saturday. An hour later, Owen emerged from the hotel feeling like a new man. His trailed dust had been scrubbed away, his beard trimmed, and he'd changed into his one good shirt and cleanest pair of trousers. He'd even splurged on a haircut at the barber's next door. As he walked through Riverton toward the North Road, Owen found himself thinking about Catherine and little Hope. In just 24 hours, they had taken up residence in his mind in a way no one had for years. The vulnerability in Catherine's blue eyes when she'd first seen him approaching, the strength she'd shown during the birth, the tenderness with which she held her daughter, these images kept replaying in his thoughts. Don't be a fool, Sutherland, he muttered to himself. She's a widow with a newborn, heading to family. You're a drifter with nothing to offer. Yet even as he cautioned himself, his feet carried him steadily toward the Willow Brook Farm where Catherine waited. The Wilsons' son, Edward, and his wife, Lillian, welcomed Owen warmly when he arrived. Their farmhouse was modest but comfortable, with a large kitchen that smelled of fresh bread and roasting meat. Mother's been telling us about your heroics, Edward said, pumping Owen's hand enthusiastically. Not many men would know what to do in such a situation. I just did what needed doing, Owen said, embarrassed by the praise. Lillian, a pretty young woman with a baby on her hip, smiled at him. Well, Catherine is resting now, but she should be down for dinner. You must be starving after your adventures. Indeed, the dinner that followed was the finest Owen had eaten in months. A plump roast chicken, fresh vegetables from the farm's garden, hot biscuits with butter and honey, and an apple pie for dessert. Catherine joined them, looking refreshed after rest and a proper washing, with Hope sleeping peacefully in a borrowed cradle nearby. Jenkins at the livery is sending word to your sister, Owen told her as they ate, and he's arranged for someone to fetch your wagon tomorrow. Thank you, Catherine said. You've thought of everything. It's the least I could do, Owen replied. After dinner, while the Wilsons busied themselves with clearing the table and tending to their own infant son, Owen and Catherine sat on the front porch in the cool evening air. Hope was nestled in Catherine's arms, making tiny snuffling noises in her sleep. What will you do now? Catherine asked. After you leave Riverton, I mean. Owen leaned back in his chair, considering. Not sure. There's ranch work to be had up Montana way. Or I might head to Colorado for the winter. Heard they need men at the mill in Durango. Always moving, Catherine observed. It's what I know, Owen said with a shrug. Don't you ever want to stay somewhere, put down roots? The question caught Owen off guard. He'd been drifting for so long he rarely considered alternatives. Never had reason to, he finally replied. Catherine looked down at Hope, tracing a finger gently across the baby's cheek. Having someone to care for changes that. Before Samuel died, we had such plans. Our own land, a home, children running in the yard. I'm sorry you lost that, Owen said quietly. So am I, Catherine admitted. But hope reminds me that life continues, even when we think it's ended. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the night sounds, crickets chirping, a distant owl, the soft creak of the porch swing where they sat. Will you stay in Riverton a few days? Catherine finally asked. I'd feel better knowing you were here while I recover. Owen hesitated. The responsible thing would be to move on. Catherine had family coming, and the Wilsons were taking good care of her. There was no reason for him to linger. Yet the thought of riding away tomorrow, of never seeing Catherine or Hope again, left a hollow feeling in his chest. I could stay a bit, he found himself saying. Need to make sure that wagon gets fixed properly and you get safely to your sister's place. Catherine's smile was like sunrise breaking over the plains. I'd like that. The next morning, Owen rode with Ben Carter, the wheelwright, to retrieve Catherine's wagon. The man was talkative, filling the journey with stories of Riverton and its inhabitants. So you delivered the Fletcher woman's baby, eh? Ben asked as they drove his wagon along the trail. That'll be a tale told in town for years to come. Owen shifted uncomfortably. Just happened to be in the right place. Providence, some would call it, Ben observed. Widow alone on the trail, baby coming early could have been a tragedy. Instead, you show up like some guardian angel. Hardly an angel, Owen muttered. Ben chuckled. Modest too, say you looking for work. My brother-in-law runs the Double Circle Ranch 10 miles west of town. Always needs good hands, especially those who can think on their feet. Owen was surprised by the offer. Might be. Is it seasonal work? Year-round if you want it, Ben replied. Daniel's expanding the operation. Got a contract to supply beef to the railroad camps. The idea planted a seed in Owen's mind. Steady work near Riverton meant he could check on Catherine and Hope from time to time, ensure they were settling in well at her sister's ranch. It's just concern for their welfare, he told himself. Nothing more. They reached Catherine's wagon by mid-morning. Together, they transferred the remaining possessions to Ben's wagon, then hitched Catherine's broken vehicle to the back of their own to tow it back to town. Nice wagon, Ben commented as they worked. Good craftsmanship. Won't take much to get it running again. Just needs a new wheel and axle reinforcement. How long will repairs take? Owen asked. 3 days, maybe 4, Ben estimated. Have to wait for the wood to season properly. Don't want to rush and have it break again 10 miles down the road. This timeline suited Owen fine. It gave him an excuse to remain in Riverton a little longer. When they returned to town, Owen helped unload Catherine's belongings at the Wilson farm, where she greeted him with evident pleasure. How do you feel today? He asked, noting with relief that her color was better. Much stronger, she assured him. And Hope is eating well and sleeping between feedings. Dr. Harmon visited this morning and says we're both doing remarkably well, considering. That's good news, Owen said, setting down a trunk in the guest room where Catherine was staying. Your wagon should be repaired in 3 or 4 days. My sister and brother-in-law are coming to town tomorrow, Catherine told him. Jenkins got word to them. They've invited me to stay with them as planned, but Dr. Harmon insists I remain here until at least the end of the week. Best listen to the doctor, Owen advised. No sense rushing your recovery. Will you still be here when my sister comes? Catherine asked, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. I will, Owen promised. Actually, I've been offered work nearby, might stick around Riverton for a while. Catherine's face brightened. Really? That's wonderful news. Her obvious delight at his potential extended stay warmed Owen in a way he hadn't expected. He'd spent years keeping his distance from people, protecting himself from the pain of loss by avoiding deep connections. Yet in just 2 days, this woman and her tiny daughter had somehow slipped past his defenses. The next day, Catherine's sister Sarah arrived with her husband, Robert Cooper. Sarah was a younger version of Catherine, with the same golden blonde hair and blue eyes, though her face showed the weathering effects of years in the Wyoming sun. Robert was a tall, broad-shouldered man with an honest face and firm handshake. "We can't thank you enough for what you did, Mr. Sutherland," Sarah said, clasping Owen's hand between both of hers. "If you hadn't come along when you did." She couldn't finish the sentence, her eyes filling with tears. "You're welcome at Silver Creek anytime," Robert added. "Our home is yours whenever you need it." Owen was touched by their gratitude and generosity. "I appreciate that. I'm actually considering taking work at the Double Circle Ranch nearby." "Daniel Thornton's place?" Robert asked. "Good operation. Daniel's fair and pays on time. You could do worse." While Catherine visited with her sister, Owen and Robert stepped outside to talk. "Catherine told me about losing her husband," Owen said quietly. "Must have been hard, making the journey here alone in her condition." Robert nodded grimly. "Samuel was a good man. His death hit her hard. We begged her to wait until after the baby came to travel, but she was determined. Said she couldn't afford to keep their place without him." "She's strong," Owen observed. "Stubborn is what we call it in the family," Robert said with a slight smile. "But yes, she has grit. She'll need it, raising a child alone out here." "She won't be alone," Owen found himself saying. "She has you and your wife. And perhaps others who care about her welfare," Robert suggested, giving Owen a knowing look. Owen felt his face warm. Was his interest in Catherine so obvious? "I just want to make sure she and the baby are all right," he said carefully. Robert nodded, not pressing the issue. "Well, as I said, you're welcome at our place anytime. We're having a small gathering 2 Sundays from now, harvest celebration. Nothing fancy, just neighbors sharing a meal. You should come." "I might do that," Owen replied. Over the next few days, Owen secured the job at the Double Circle Ranch. Daniel Thornton was impressed by Owen's extensive experience with cattle and hired him immediately, offering use of a small cabin on the property. "Previous hand built it, left last spring to try his luck mining in Colorado," Daniel explained as he showed Owen the simple one-room structure. "Needs some work, but it's solid. Stove works, roof doesn't leak." "It's more than adequate," Owen assured him, surveying what would be his first real home in years. The cabin was basic but clean, with a bed, table, 2 chairs, and a cook stove. A small window looked out toward the distant mountains. "You can start Monday," Daniel said. "Take the rest of the week to get settled and take care of any business in town." This arrangement was perfect, allowing Owen to be present when Catherine was cleared to travel to her sister's ranch. "By Saturday, Doctor." Harmon pronounced both mother and child fit to make the short journey to Silver Creek. "Just take it easy for another week," the doctor cautioned. "No heavy lifting, plenty of rest between activities." Catherine's wagon, now repaired with a sturdy new wheel, was loaded with her possessions. Robert brought their larger wagon as well to transport Catherine and Hope more comfortably. As they prepared to depart from the Wilson farm, Catherine sought Owen out. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, Hope sleeping peacefully in her arms. "You saved our lives." "No need for thanks," Owen replied. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Catherine said firmly. "Not anyone could have done what you did. You kept your head in a crisis, delivered my baby safely, and protected us through the night. You've arranged for my wagon's repair and made sure we had a safe place to recover. These aren't small things, Owen." The way she said his name made his heart beat faster. "You're coming to Silver Creek for the harvest gathering, aren't you?" Catherine asked. "Robert said he invited you." "I plan to," Owen assured her. I start work at Double Circle on Monday, but I'll have Sundays free. Good, Catherine said with a smile. Hope should meet the man who brought her into the world. As the wagons pulled away from town, Owen stood watching until they disappeared from sight. For the first time in years, he felt a pull towards someone that was stronger than his instinct to keep moving. The following week passed quickly as Owen settled into his new role at the Double Circle. The work was hard but satisfying, and Daniel proved to be a fair employer who valued Owen's experience and work ethic. The other hands were a decent bunch of men, though Owen kept mostly to himself, spending his evenings fixing up his cabin and thinking about Catherine and Hope. By the time Sunday arrived, Owen had cleaned and repaired his small home, adding a few personal touches: a bookshelf made from old crates, curtains purchased from the general store in town, a rocking chair he'd bought secondhand from another ranch hand. He rose early that day, putting on his best clothes and carefully grooming himself before saddling his horse for the ride to Silver Creek. He brought with him 2 gifts: a small wooden horse he'd carved during his evening hours for Hope, and a loaf of fresh bread he'd purchased from the baker in Riverton for the communal meal. Silver Creek Ranch sat in a picturesque valley with a clear stream running through it. The main house was larger than Owen had expected, built of solid logs with a covered porch wrapping around 2 sides. Several outbuildings, a barn, and corrals completed the homestead. As Owen approached, he could see other wagons and horses already there, indicating the gathering was underway. Robert spotted him first, waving from where he was turning meat over a pit barbecue. "Owen, glad you made it," he called. "Tie your horse over by the corral and come join us." Owen did as suggested, then made his way toward the cluster of people in the yard. He recognized a few faces from town, including Ben Carter and his wife. Others were strangers, presumably neighboring ranchers and their families. He scanned the crowd for Catherine, but didn't see her immediately. A moment of doubt struck him: perhaps she was resting inside, or maybe she'd changed her mind about wanting to see him again. "Mr. Sutherland." Owen turned to see Sarah Cooper approaching with a warm smile. "We're so glad you could join us," she said. "Catherine's just inside with Hope. She'll be out shortly. Come, let me introduce you to some of our neighbors." For the next half hour, Owen made polite conversation with the various guests, though his eyes frequently strayed to the house's front door. Finally, it opened, and Catherine emerged with Hope in her arms. The sight of her stole Owen's breath. She wore a simple blue dress that matched her eyes, her golden hair neatly arranged in a braid over one shoulder. The week of rest had clearly done her good. Her cheeks had a healthy glow, and she moved with more ease than when he'd last seen her. She spotted him immediately, her face lighting up as she made her way toward him. "You came," she said, sounding genuinely pleased. "I said I would," Owen replied, unable to keep from smiling back at her. Hope had changed in just a week. Her face had filled out, losing some of the newborn redness, and her dark eyes were alert, taking in the world around her. "May I?" Owen asked, gesturing toward the baby. Catherine carefully transferred Hope into his arms. The baby looked up at him, her tiny brow furrowing momentarily before relaxing. She weighed almost nothing, this little life he'd helped bring into the world, yet she seemed to anchor him to the spot in a way nothing ever had. "She's grown," he observed softly. "Like a weed," Catherine agreed with a laugh. "Dr. Harmon says she's thriving despite her early arrival." "Strong like her mother," Owen said, meeting Catherine's eyes. A blush colored her cheeks. "How do you like the Double Circle? Robert says it's a good operation." "It is," Owen confirmed. "Honest work, fair pay, and the cabin they've given me is comfortable enough." "Your own place," Catherine noted. "That must be nice after years on the trail." "It is," Owen admitted, "though it's taking some getting used to having a door I can close, walls that keep out the wind and rain." "Perhaps you'd show it to me sometime," Catherine suggested, then quickly added, "Hope and I enjoy riding out when the weather's fine. Once I'm fully recovered, of course. I'd like that, Owen said, warmed by the thought of Catherine visiting his small home. The rest of the gathering passed pleasantly. The food was plentiful and delicious, the company agreeable. Owen found himself drawn into conversations about cattle prices, weather predictions for the coming winter, and local politics. Through it all, he remained aware of Catherine's presence nearby, the sound of her laughter, the gentle way she tended to Hope. As the afternoon waned and guests began to depart, Owen lingered, helping Robert and some other men bank the barbecue fire and move tables back into the barn. "No rush to leave," Robert told him when they finished. "Stay for supper. Sarah always makes too much food." Owen accepted the invitation, and as twilight settled over the valley, he found himself sitting on the porch with Catherine while Sarah and Robert put their children to bed inside. "Hope is down for a while," Catherine said, joining him with 2 cups of coffee. "She'll wake for a feeding in a couple of hours." "She seems to be adjusting well to ranch life," Owen observed, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Better than I am," Catherine admitted with a wry smile. "I lived in town most of my life before marrying Samuel. The openness out here still takes me by surprise sometimes, how vast everything is, how far from neighbors and conveniences." "But beautiful," Owen noted, gesturing toward the view before them. The setting sun had painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, silhouetting the distant mountains. "Yes," Catherine agreed softly. "Beautiful." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, sipping their coffee and watching night claim the valley. Stars appeared, first a few, then by the hundreds, until the sky was a glittering tapestry above them. "I brought something for Hope," Owen said finally, reaching into his coat pocket. "It's not much, just something to remember her unusual birth by." He handed Catherine the small wooden horse. She took it, turning it over in her hands, admiring the careful craftsmanship. "You made this?" she asked, clearly impressed. Owen nodded. "Had plenty of evenings to myself. Keeps my hands busy." "It's beautiful," Catherine said. "Her first toy, thank you, Owen." The way she said his name made his heart skip a beat. Owen knew he was treading dangerous ground. Catherine was still in mourning for her husband, still adjusting to motherhood and her new life at Silver Creek. The last thing she needed was a drifting cowboy developing feelings for her. Yet as they sat side by side on that porch, with the night sounds of the valley surrounding them and the stars overhead, Owen couldn't deny the pull he felt toward her. In the week since he'd helped deliver Hope, something had shifted inside him. The life he'd led before, rootless, solitary, always moving, suddenly seemed empty compared to the possibility of what? He wasn't even sure what he wanted, only that it involved being near Catherine and Hope. "I should go," he said reluctantly as the hour grew late. "Early start at the ranch tomorrow." Catherine walked with him to where his horse was tied. "Will you come again next Sunday?" she asked. "Not a big gathering, just a regular dinner. Sarah and Robert would love to have you, and so would Hope and I." The invitation warmed Owen through. "I'd like that very much." "Good," Catherine said, reaching out to squeeze his hand briefly. "Until Sunday, then." Owen rode back to his cabin under the star-filled sky, his mind full of Catherine's smile, the weight of Hope in his arms, and the feeling that perhaps, at long last, he might have found a place where belonging was possible. The autumn days grew shorter as September yielded to October. Owen settled into a routine at the double circle that felt surprisingly comfortable. Weekdays were filled with the demanding work of a cattle ranch, mending fences, moving herds to fresh pasture, breaking horses, and preparing for the coming winter. Sundays, however, became sacred. Each week, he rode to Silver Creek Ranch to share dinner with the Coopers and Catherine, watching in wonder as Hope grew and changed. By her first-month birthday, Hope had filled out considerably, her cheeks round and her tiny body stronger. She could lift her head now and had begun to focus her eyes on faces, even offering what Catherine insisted were real smiles, not just gas, as Sarah teasingly suggested. "She knows you," Catherine told Owen one Sunday as he held Hope after dinner. "Look how she watches your face." Indeed, the baby's dark eyes seemed fixed on Owen's, her expression solemn as if studying him intently. "Smart girl," Owen said softly, taking the measure of everyone around her. "Just like her mother," Robert commented from across the room where he was playing checkers with his oldest son. Catherine sized us all up within a day of arriving, knew every strength and weakness on the ranch before the week was out. Catherine laughed. "I did no such thing." "You absolutely did," Sarah countered, joining the conversation. "First thing you said to me was that our chicken coop needed reinforcement before winter and the garden would yield better if we rotated crops." "Well, I was right, wasn't I?" Catherine defended herself with a smile. "About both things," Sarah admitted. "The coyotes got into the hen house exactly where you said they would." Owen enjoyed these family moments, the gentle teasing and easy laughter. The Coopers had welcomed him into their home without reservation, treating him more like a longtime friend than a recent acquaintance. And Catherine. Each week, she seemed more at ease with him, more willing to share her thoughts and feelings. As October progressed, Catherine continued to recover her strength. She began helping more around the ranch, and Owen often arrived on Sundays to find her engaged in some task, hanging laundry, kneading bread, or tending the kitchen garden that was being prepared for winter. "Doctor Harmon says I'm fully healed," she told Owen one crisp Sunday as they walked the property after dinner, Hope bundled warmly against Catherine's chest in a sling. "No more restrictions on what I can do." "That's good news," Owen said. "You seem stronger every time I see you." "I feel stronger," Catherine agreed. "Not just physically. When Samuel died, I thought my life was over. Then when I found myself alone on that trail with Hope coming early, I was certain we would both die. But we didn't. We survived, and now I'm beginning to think about the future again." "What do you see in that future?" Owen asked carefully. Catherine was quiet for a moment, her eyes on the distant mountains. "A home for Hope, a place where she can grow up safe and loved, work that sustains us both." "Silver Creek seems like a good place for that," Owen observed. "It is," Catherine agreed. "Sarah and Robert have been so generous, but I can't live on their charity forever. I need to make my own way somehow." "Have you thought about what you might do?" Catherine nodded. "Several things, actually. I was a school teacher before I married Samuel. Riverton is growing fast. They may need another teacher soon, or perhaps I could take in sewing. I'm quite skilled with a needle." "Both seem like good options," Owen said encouragingly. "What about you?" Catherine asked, turning to look at him directly. "Is the double circle just another stop on your journey, or are you thinking of staying in these parts?" The question caught Owen off guard, though he'd been asking himself the same thing lately. His instinct to keep moving had quieted since he'd met Catherine and delivered Hope. For the first time in years, he found himself thinking about next season, next year, a future beyond the immediate horizon. "I'm thinking of staying," he admitted. "Daniels offered me the foreman position when Hank retires this spring. It's good work, and the cabin, well, I've been fixing it up. Feels more like home now." Catherine's face brightened. "Owen, that's wonderful news. A foreman position is a real opportunity." "It is," Owen agreed, "though the cabin's still mighty small. But yours," Catherine pointed out. "There's value in having a place that belongs to you, no matter the size." Hope began to fuss then, and Catherine rocked gently, soothing the baby. "She's getting hungry," Catherine explained. "We should head back to the house." As they walked back, Owen gathered his courage. "I meant what I said about showing you my place sometime. If you'd like to ride out one day this week, I could meet you at the crossroads at noon. It's not far from here." Catherine considered for a moment, then nodded. "Wednesday would work. Sarah can watch Hope for a few hours." "Wednesday it is," Owen agreed. his heart beating faster at the thought of spending time alone with Catherine away from the watchful eyes of her family. When Wednesday arrived, Owen was uncharacteristically nervous. He'd spent the previous evening cleaning his cabin thoroughly, even adding touches like fresh pine boughs in a tin can for a pleasant scent, and his one good blanket folded neatly on the bed. He'd arranged with Daniel to take an extended noon break, promising to make up the work in the evening. He met Catherine at the crossroads as planned, his breath catching at the sight of her on horseback. She rode well, sitting straight and confident in the saddle, her golden hair braided and tucked beneath a practical hat. She wore a split riding skirt that allowed her to ride astride and a warm jacket against the October chill. "You look like you were born to the saddle," Owen commented as they fell into step side by side. Catherine laughed. "Hardly. I'm still getting used to it. Sarah's been teaching me." "How is Hope?" he asked, knowing how difficult it must have been for Catherine to leave her, even briefly. "Sleeping peacefully when I left," Catherine replied. "She started sleeping for longer stretches, thank goodness. Sarah promised to send one of the children for me if she wakes and needs feeding." They rode at a comfortable pace through rolling grasslands dotted with pines. The double-circle property was well maintained, with sturdy fences and fat cattle grazing in the autumn pastures. "Daniel runs a tight operation," Owen explained as they passed a group of hands mending a section of fence. "Plans to expand next spring if beef prices hold." "And you'll be foreman by then," Catherine said, "responsible for it all." "If I stay," Owen clarified. "I haven't given Daniel my final answer yet." Catherine gave him a sidelong glance but didn't press the issue. They crested a small rise, and Owen's cabin came into view. It sat in a protected hollow with tall pines on 3 sides and a small creek running nearby. Smoke rose from the chimney. He'd left a small fire burning to keep the place warm, and the afternoon sun glinted off the recently washed window. "Owen," Catherine breathed, "it's lovely." Pride swelled in his chest at her approval. "It's not much, but I've been working on it. Added a porch last week." Indeed, a small covered porch now extended from the front door, with 2 chairs set upon it. They dismounted and tethered their horses to the hitching post Owen had installed. "May I show you inside?" he asked, suddenly shy about the humble accommodations. "Please," Catherine said, her eyes bright with interest. The cabin's interior was simple but neat. The main room contained the cookstove, a table with 2 chairs, a small bookshelf with Owen's few books, and a rocking chair near the fireplace. A curtain partially separated the sleeping area, where a narrow bed stood with a chest at its foot for clothing. "You've made it so homey," Catherine observed, running her hand along the smooth wood of the table. "Did you make these shelves?" Owen nodded. "And the table?" "The chairs I traded for with a fellow in town, my labor breaking a horse for his furniture-making skills." "It's perfect," Catherine said sincerely. "Just the right size for one person." "A bit tight for more than that," Owen admitted, then felt his face grow warm at the implication of his words. If Catherine noticed his discomfort, she didn't show it. Instead, she moved to the window, looking out at the view of the creek and distant mountains. "The light is wonderful," she commented, "and so quiet except for the creek." "Would you like some coffee?" Owen offered. "I put the pot on before I left." "That would be lovely," Catherine accepted. Owen busied himself with pouring coffee into 2 tin cups, grateful for the distraction. Having Catherine in his small home felt both right and dangerous right, because her presence seemed to fill a void he hadn't fully acknowledged. Dangerous, because it made him want things he wasn't sure he could have. They sat at the table, sipping their coffee and talking easily about ranch matters, the approaching winter, and Hope's latest developments. "She's trying to roll over," Catherine said proudly. "Dr. Harmon says she's advanced for her age." "Not surprising," Owen replied. "She made her entrance into the world with determination. Stands to reason she'd be eager to get moving." Catherine laughed, then grew serious. I never properly thanked you for that night, for staying calm when I was terrified, for knowing what to do. You did thank me, Owen reminded her. Several times. Words don't seem adequate, Catherine insisted. You saved our lives, Owen, if you hadn't come along when you did. But I did, Owen said gently, and you and Hope are thriving. That's thanks enough. Catherine reached across the table and placed her hand on his. Is it? What if I wanted to offer more? Owen's heart thundered in his chest. What do you mean? Catherine's cheeks flushed pink, but her gaze remained steady. I've been thinking about you, about us, about how you've become such an important part of Hope's life and mine in such a short time. Catherine, Owen began, uncertain what to say. You're still recovering from loss. I wouldn't want to take advantage, Catherine supplied. You wouldn't be. I know my own mind, Owen. Yes, I loved Samuel and I mourned him deeply. But life continues, as you helped me see the night Hope was born. She squeezed his hand. I'm not proposing marriage or making any declarations. I'm simply saying that I care for you and I believe you care for me, and I'd like to see where that might lead if you're willing. Owen turned his hand to clasp hers properly. I do care for you, Catherine, more than I should, perhaps, but I'm a simple cowboy with nothing much to offer except a small cabin and uncertain prospects. You offer kindness, Catherine countered, and strength and gentleness and integrity. I've seen how you are with Hope, how patient and tender. Those qualities are worth more than gold to me. The honesty in her blue eyes undid him. Owen stood, drawing Catherine to her feet and pulling her gently into his arms. I've wanted to do this for weeks, he murmured, giving her every chance to pull away. Instead, Catherine leaned into him, lifting her face to his. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a question being asked and answered. When they parted, Catherine's eyes were shining. That was worth waiting for, she whispered. Owen tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. I've never met anyone like you, Catherine Fletcher. You've made me want things I gave up on long ago, a home, a family, a place to belong. Those things are possible, Owen, Catherine said softly, if we're brave enough to reach for them. They spent another hour at the cabin, talking more openly now about their feelings and hopes. Both agreed to proceed slowly, mindful of the complexities of their situation, Catherine's recent widowhood, her responsibilities to Hope, the opinions of her family and the community. Sarah already suspects, Catherine admitted as they prepared to leave. She's noticed how I light up on Sundays when you arrive. And what does she think of it? Owen asked, concerned about the Cooper's reaction. She worries it's too soon, Catherine said honestly, but she also says life is too short and too hard out here to deny happiness when it presents itself. Wise woman, Owen commented. She is, Catherine agreed, and she likes you, which helps. Robert, too. They rode back to the crossroads together, reluctant to part but aware of responsibilities waiting for both of them. Sunday seems very far away, Owen said as they reached the point where they would separate. It does, Catherine agreed, but I'll be thinking of you until then. And I you, Owen replied. He leaned over from his saddle and kissed her once more, a promise of things to come. The weeks that followed took on a new sweetness for Owen. His Sunday visits to Silver Creek became the center around which the rest of his days revolved. He accepted Daniel's offer of the foreman position, committed now to building a life in the Riverton area. He continued improving his cabin, adding shelves, reinforcing the roof against winter storms and extending the porch to wrap around two sides of the structure. Catherine, meanwhile, had secured a position as assistant teacher at the Riverton School, set to begin after the new year. 3 days a week, she would ride into town with Hope, teach the younger children their letters and numbers, then return to Silver Creek by afternoon. The arrangement would provide her with income while allowing her to continue living with her sister's family until she could establish a place of her own. It's perfect, she told Owen as they walked the Silver Creek property one cold November Sunday. I'll be contributing to my keep, using my education, and still have plenty of time with Hope. I'm proud of you, Owen said sincerely, taking charge of your future that way. Hope, now nearly 2 months old, was bundled warmly against Catherine's chest in the sling she preferred for carrying her daughter. The baby was awake, her dark eyes taking in the world around her with increasing awareness. When Owen spoke, she turned her head toward the sound of his voice. "She knows you," Catherine said, not for the first time. "See how she responds to your voice." Owen reached out to touch Hope's cheek gently. "Hello there, little one. Growing stronger every day, aren't you?" Hope's tiny hand escaped the blanket and grabbed Owen's finger with surprising strength. "She definitely knows me," Owen said with a chuckle, "and she's not letting go." "Smart girl," Catherine murmured, echoing what Owen had said about Hope weeks before. As they walked back toward the house, Owen gathered his courage. "I've been thinking," he began. "A dangerous pastime," Catherine teased. "Indeed," Owen agreed with a smile, "but necessary sometimes. I've been thinking about us, about the future." Catherine looked at him expectantly. "I know we agreed to take things slowly," Owen continued, "and I respect that. But I also know what I want now with a certainty I've never felt before." He stopped walking and turned to face her directly. "I love you, Catherine, you and Hope both. I want to build a life with you if you'll have me." Catherine's eyes filled with tears, but her smile was radiant. "Oh, Owen. I love you too. I think I have since that night on the trail when you helped bring Hope into the world." "Is it too soon to speak of marriage?" Owen asked. "I know you're still healing from Samuel's loss, and I don't want to rush you, but I want you to know my intentions are serious." Catherine shifted Hope slightly so she could reach up and touch Owen's face. "It's not too soon to speak of it. Samuel would want me to be happy to give Hope a father who loves her. And that's what you do. Owen, you love her as if she were your own." "She is my own in every way that matters," Owen said simply. "I was there when she took her first breath. I'd like to be there for all the breaths that follow." Catherine stood on tiptoe and kissed him, a kiss full of promise and future. "Then yes," she whispered against his lips. "Yes, I will marry you, Owen Sutherland." They announced their engagement to the Coopers that evening over dinner. Sarah cried happy tears while Robert shook Owen's hand firmly. "You'll take care of them both," Robert said, a statement rather than a question. "With everything I have," Owen promised. They set the wedding date for Christmas Eve, a time when the community would already be gathered for holiday celebrations and when traveling relatives could attend. The ceremony would take place in the small church in Riverton, followed by a reception at Silver Creek. The weeks leading up to the wedding passed in a blur of preparation and anticipation. Owen worked double shifts at the ranch, saving every penny for their future. He expanded his cabin, adding a proper bedroom and enlarging the main living area to accommodate a family. Catherine divided her time between caring for Hope, helping Sarah with holiday preparations, and sewing her wedding dress, a simple but elegant creation of ivory wool with pearl buttons salvaged from her mother's gown. Word of their engagement spread quickly through the community. Most reactions were positive. The story of how Owen had delivered Hope on the lonely trail had become something of a local legend, and many saw their marriage as the perfect conclusion to an already romantic tale. A few raised eyebrows at the speed of the courtship, given Catherine's relatively recent widowhood, but Sarah defended her sister fiercely. "Life moves at its own pace out here," she told one particularly judgmental church lady. "Catherine and Hope need a husband and father, and Owen needs a family. God brought them together in extraordinary circumstances. Who are we to question his timing?" By mid-December, snow blanketed the Wyoming landscape, transforming the rugged terrain into a pristine wonderland. The creek at Silver Creek Ranch froze solid, and the children spent hours skating on its surface, their laughter carrying across the valley. Inside, The house was warm and fragrant with the smells of holiday baking and pine boughs brought in to decorate the mantels and tables. A week before the wedding, a letter arrived for Catherine from Nebraska. It was from Samuel's brother, responding to the news of her engagement. "He wishes us well," Catherine told Owen that Sunday as they sat by the fire after dinner. Hope was sleeping peacefully in a cradle Robert had crafted as a gift for the soon-to-be-married couple. "Says Samuel would approve of a man who saved his daughter's life." "That's generous of him," Owen said, relieved. He'd worried about how Samuel's family might react to Catherine remarrying so soon. "He's a good man," Catherine said. "They all are. They're sending a package for Hope family heirlooms Samuel would have wanted her to have." Owen nodded, grateful for this connection to Hope's heritage. Though he would raise her as his own, he believed it important that she know of her birth father and his family. "We'll make sure she knows about Samuel," he promised. "About the man he was, how much he would have loved her." Catherine leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. "You're a remarkable man, Owen Sutherland." "Just a man who found what he didn't know he was looking for," Owen replied, wrapping his arm around her. Christmas Eve arrived with perfect weather for a wedding, clear skies, fresh snow on the ground, and temperatures cold but not bitter. The small church in Riverton was decorated with evergreen boughs, red ribbons, and candles that cast a warm glow over the gathered congregation. Owen stood at the altar, dressed in a new suit purchased specifically for the occasion, his normally unruly dark hair neatly combed. Daniel Thornton stood beside him as best man, having become a good friend as well as employer over the past months. When the church doors opened and Catherine appeared on Robert's arm, Owen's breath caught in his throat. She was radiant in her ivory gown, her golden hair arranged in soft waves beneath a veil trimmed with lace. She carried a small bouquet of winter greenery tied with a blue ribbon the same shade as her eyes. Sarah followed, carrying Hope, who was dressed in a christening gown that had been worn by generations of Cooper babies. The 3-month-old was awake and alert, her dark eyes taking in the unfamiliar surroundings with calm curiosity. As Catherine moved toward him down the aisle, Owen felt a certainty settle over him like a blessing. This woman and child were his family now. After years of drifting, he had found his home. The ceremony was simple but moving. They exchanged traditional vows, promising to love and cherish each other through whatever life might bring. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Owen kissed Catherine tenderly, sealing their commitment before God and community. Then, in a moment that hadn't been planned but felt absolutely right, Owen reached for Hope. Sarah placed the baby in his arms and he held her close as he spoke additional vows. "Hope Fletcher Sutherland," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion behind it. "I promise to be the father you deserve, to protect and guide you, to teach you about this world and your place in it, to love you as my own, because you are and have been since the moment you drew your first breath." There wasn't a dry eye in the church as Owen handed Hope back to Catherine, who kissed her daughter's forehead before they turned to face their friends and family as a newly formed family. The reception at Silver Creek was joyous, with music provided by local fiddle players, tables laden with food contributed by neighbors, and plenty of warm cider and coffee to ward off the winter chill. Children played in the snow outside, occasionally rushing in to warm themselves by the fire before returning to their games. As evening fell, Owen and Catherine prepared to depart for their first night as husband and wife. They would spend it at Owen's cabin, now their cabin, before returning to Silver Creek for Christmas Day celebrations. "Are you sure you want to leave Hope overnight?" Owen asked as Catherine nursed the baby one last time before their departure. "We could take her with us." Catherine shook her head. "Sarah's insisted on giving us this night to ourselves. Hope will be fine, she's sleeping through most of the night now, and Sarah knows her routine." She stroked her daughter's cheek as Hope's eyes began to close, milk drunk and content. Besides, we'll be back tomorrow. And after New Year's, we'll all be together in our own home. The plans they'd made involved Catherine and Hope moving permanently to the cabin after the holidays. By then, the final improvements would be complete, including a nursery area for Hope. They made their farewells amid good-natured teasing from the guests, then climbed into the sleigh Owen had borrowed from Daniel for the occasion. Wrapped in thick buffalo robes against the cold, they set off across the moonlit snow toward their home. The cabin was warm when they arrived, thanks to Daniel's foreman who had ridden ahead to light the fire. Candles glowed in the windows, and a small Christmas tree stood in one corner, decorated with paper stars and strings of dried berries. Owen helped Catherine down from the sleigh, then surprised her by sweeping her into his arms. Tradition, he explained with a smile as he carried her across the threshold. Inside, the cabin was transformed from the humble bachelor quarters it had once been. New curtains hung at the windows, a colorful rag rug covered the plank floor, and the table was set with Catherine's dishes brought from Nebraska. It was still simple, but it was now unmistakably a home. "Welcome home, Mrs. Sutherland," Owen said, setting Catherine gently on her feet. "It's perfect," she whispered, turning in a slow circle to take it all in. "Everything I could have wished for." That night, as they lay together in the quiet darkness of their cabin, Catherine nestled against Owen's chest. "Are you happy?" he asked, stroking her golden hair that spilled across the pillow. "Completely," she murmured. "Are you?" "More than I ever thought possible," Owen replied honestly. "If someone had told me 6 months ago that I'd be married with a daughter by Christmas, I'd have thought them mad." Catherine laughed softly. "Life has a way of surprising us. When my wagon wheel broke and I felt those first labor pains, I thought it was the end of everything. Instead, it was just the beginning." "Providence," Owen said, remembering Ben Carter's words from months ago. "Some things are meant to be." "Like us," Catherine agreed, raising her face for his kiss. The years that followed brought challenges and joys, as all lives do. The next winter was harsh, testing their resilience with blizzards and temperatures that froze the creek solid for months. But their cabin remained warm and secure, and by spring, Catherine was expecting their second child. Owen thrived as foreman at the Double Circle, eventually purchasing a small parcel of land adjacent to the ranch where he and Catherine established their own modest cattle operation. Hope grew into a bright, strong-willed child with her mother's golden hair and her birth father's thoughtful nature. She was joined by a brother, Samuel Owen, named for both his fathers, and 2 years later by twins Sarah and Robert, named for the aunt and uncle who had welcomed their unconventional family with open arms. Every year on Hope's birthday, Owen would tell the story of her dramatic entrance into the world, how her impatience to arrive had set in motion a chain of events that brought them all together. The children never tired of hearing how their father had delivered their eldest sister on a lonely trail, how he had fallen in love with their mother by firelight as a new life took her first breaths. It was the luckiest broken wheel in history, Owen would always conclude, his arm around Catherine, his heart full with the knowledge that the long, solitary trail of his earlier years had led him exactly where he was meant to be. And Catherine, watching her husband with their children, would remember that moment of terror when she realized her baby was coming too soon and she was miles from help. How close she had come to tragedy, and how instead, fate had sent Owen Sutherland riding into their lives, changing everything. Some called it luck, others providence. Catherine and Owen simply called it love, unexpected, all-encompassing, and as vast as the Wyoming sky that had witnessed their beginning.